The podcast will begin in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Welcome to the Grotto Group podcast. We have Paul Farley, which you guys know him by now. We have the great Dr. Nick, world-renowned chiropractor. Dr. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, guys. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
If you don't mind, could you dive straight in and tell us a little bit like how you got started, how long have you been a chiropractor, where you're located, things of that nature?
Sure. I got started in chiropractic I graduated in 2004. So I've been doing this about 20 years. What got me into chiropractic was when I was younger, I started having problems fairly early on. I'm heavy into martial arts. So I trained my body very vigorously, started having knee problems, started having just what people call your standard aches and pains. But what shocked me is as I started in chiropractic, my chiropractor, I would have a sinus infection every year. And so one day I looked at my chiropractor and said, well, it's time for the yearly dose of amoxicillin to deal with the sinus infection. And he said, don't do that. Work with me and you'll never take amoxicillin. You'll never have to take amoxicillin again. And I had taken amoxicillin once a year for 5 years. I was lactose intolerant. It had just wrecked my system. It's very powerful, but it's really bad for your gut. If you don't support yourself properly, it really tears you apart. An antibiotic literally means anti against biotic life. So it's anti-life. And your body is full of life. And we have 70 trillion cells in our body. And then we have another 100 trillion microbe critters that run around in our guts. So antibiotics just wreck your system. So I saw this guy regularly for about a month. It was honestly terrible, but I got through it. I no longer had a sinus infection. And every year after that, about the time I would get my sinus infection, I didn't get the sinus infection, but about the time that I would get it, I started hitting the chiropractor real hard. I started using different vitamins and minerals and augmented my nervous system and my immune system. And I've never had a sinus infection again. So I walked in for the typical aches and pains and got an understanding that what we really want in life is to be 100% adaptable to life. And that's really how my approach to chiropractic is. Aches and pains, they're going to happen, but how well can you adapt to life? My practice is in Virginia Beach specifically, and I also have another practice in Portsmouth, Virginia. And like I said, I've been doing it 20 years.
Are you originally from Virginia Beach, Doc? Sorry. Are you originally from here?
Sort of. I'm a Navy brat, so I got to Virginia Beach, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, something like that. I've lived here a long time. I've lived in Richmond. I've lived in Atlanta. I've lived in South Carolina. Spent some time in California. Lots of different places, but yeah, this is home. In fact, the room you're seeing me in is my family room, and this is the house I grew up in.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I came back. My mom burned down the kitchen and ended up buying a different house because it was easier than fixing the kitchen. And she said, if you remodel the kitchen, the house is yours. And I'm like, oh my God, what a gift, especially in today's day and age.
Yeah.
So, now, it's funny because the green wall behind me is actually wood paneling from the original house, and we just painted over it.
That was a gift. I've been to several chiropractors before, and I was kind of like Farley, like Farley. I'm not gonna pick on Farley today, which I normally do happily, but it's I didn't like going through all the X-rays and all. It just seemed like it was hocus pocus, and it never worked for me. And I just happened to be driving on 64, and I saw a van with your number. I don't know why. I have no clue. I called you up, and we've been laughing and joking and been buddies ever since. And it's really worked for me because I know there times I could barely walk in there. And I remember you telling me that you might get sick a few days after this adjustment or not feel as well. I said, oh, man, that don't sound right. But you know something?
Tim's actually cutting it short. Yes, he saw a van with my number on it, but I had given my minivan to a friend of mine who needed a car. So it wasn't even my vehicle anymore. He had just never taken the number off of it. So
what a friend. Good friend.
Yeah, it was a good friend. He's driving around, advertising for me. And
we're talking about years later, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was yeah, I had just given it to him and he just drove it around. So I was like, right on. That works great.
I'm sorry, Doc, so your practice that you have, is it just you, or do you have other chiropractic docs there as well, or is it just you and your business and then your other location in Portsmouth?
Not only am I a one-man show, I'm literally a one-man show. I don't have receptionists. I don't have anybody to help me. I run the whole thing myself. I joke with people all the time and go, hey, if you ever need to get in touch with me, text me on the office number because that's my cell phone. I run the whole thing off my cell phone. So if you dial 757-619-9272, that's not the office number. That's my cell phone number. So if you call me on my cell phone, I respond with, hey, this is Dr. Nick. How can I help you?
I'll tell you what, you have a beautiful system because it's always crowded when I come. Not crowded, but you have people coming in and out. I try to be the first one there. If people beat me, they're waiting in the parking lot for you.
Sure.
What is the difference between your method and some of the other stuff where you got to get A's and you're doing all this hocus pocus stuff you see on YouTube? Not to put anybody down, I just don't like that method.
It's not my biggest challenge with people who have been to other chiropractors is a lot of chiropractors don't educate people properly on what we do. And that's the frustrating part is chiropractors don't fix, we don't correct, I would argue that we don't even align the spine. What we do is we use the nervous system, we use the spine to talk to the nervous system and reboot it. So if you're looking for a fix, that's a very medical idea. We don't fix anything. Our job is to work with your natural potential. So rather than me saying, you're doing this wrong, I'm going to fix you, I try to get people to understand that it's all based on how your body adapts to stress. There are 3 kinds of stress and only 3 things that can affect your body. There's physical trauma, car accidents, fall down the stairs, bar fight, something like that. There's mental emotional trauma, which can be a host of things. Anything you interpret as an attack against you is an emotional trauma. And then there's chemical traumas, which can be anything from food poisoning to what is it called? Anesthesia or all kinds of things. And the weirdest part is the way your nervous system reacts to any one of these stresses is exactly the same. So you can see my shoulders in the picture. If you get hit with a stick or you hit your thumb with a hammer or stub your toe, your shoulders come up. And this is called defense. Your neck allows you to look around and move and be free. But when we try to protect ourselves, there's all these vital organs in here. So your shoulders come up in defense. If I have food poisoning and I'm worshiping at the porcelain god, my shoulders come up, I lean forward, and I'm throwing up in the toilet. It's a defense mechanism. If some large animal were to jump into your room, your shoulders come up and you flinch.
Yes.
This flinch response is your defense. Well, if you have a bad enough stress and you can't adapt to it, your shoulders come up and you hold yourself in place. Well, if you're injured in a car accident and it's bad enough, you're locked into this defensive position and you stay that way. And we develop habits as people. So this becomes a habit and you stay that way, and then your muscles and your bones and your ligaments grow in this position and you're locked in. So if you really want to think about chiropractic from, let's say, we're on a computer or a phone sort of scenario, I'm Control-Alt-Deleting your nervous system, taking you out of fight or flight and putting you back into relaxed and groovy, which is the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic.
Would it stay that way, though? Would it stay that way, or just,
Well, let me ask you, how long does it take to change a habit?
It's true. Is it like 30 days, I think they say?
If you do it every day.
Yeah.
30 days, if you do a habit, and that's what they say is, hey, if you want to build a habit, you do it every day for 30 days. So if you're in defense and you're all locked up like this, and we release that, that's fine. But as soon as you have enough stress to overwhelm the system, you go back into defense. So you have to reboot the system regularly and consistently for you to find your way back into a regular parasympathetic state and to stay that way. When you're in fight or flight, you have only two options in life. You can fight or you can flight. When you're in parasympathetic, that's where all the healing, all the good rest, digestion, all that is in parasympathetic. So this is a lot to do with not breaking a habit, but restoring the original habit of health. You were made to be perfectly healthy. And as long as you can stay out of fight or flight, your body will heal to the maximum ability that it has. So we're not.
One of the questions we got a question from one of our viewers that said was from Rick. So the adjustments are to reset the nervous system because it's trying to compensate for something.
It is when you can't adapt, you become defensive. Yes. So you're compensating for something you can't adapt to, and you go into defense. It's how you protect yourself. Now, there's two kinds of stress. Stress is not all bad. You have to have stress in your life. When you lift weights, that's a stress. But if you can lift weights and you can lift weights to the point where you can adapt to it, then you get bigger and stronger. If you lift weights and you can't adapt to it, then you cause damage to the body and you get locked into that stress position. So yeah, we reset the system and we get the body better and better at adapting to life. Let me give you a very simple story. You've got a brand new truck. You start filling the back of that truck with bricks. And after a while, the back of the truck is just full of bricks, And all of a sudden you realize, do you hear that noise in the background?
No, I don't hear anything.
I don't hear it.
I'll just ignore it. Once the truck is full,
They were talking about the truck, Doc.
No.
It's like, you hear that noise? I was like, well, that must be from the bricks.
Must be from the bricks. Yeah, but that's funny. So all of a sudden you realize that your truck isn't handling properly. Your gas mileage goes into the toilet. And so you're like, oh, there's something wrong with the truck. Well, the medical answer is, well, we change out the tires and we keep changing the oil and we keep doing all those things. When you have your truck full of bricks and you're totally emptying the tank every night, then when the truck is sitting in the driveway, it's completely exhausted, and it spends the evening, the sleeping period, not healing itself, but actually trying to recover the energy that it's lost throughout the day. As you start taking the bricks out, then you end the day and you're not exhausted. I mean, every one of us has had a day where we didn't really think we did anything special, but we're completely exhausted at the end of the night. And that's when you have a lot of bricks and you're, maybe you're riding the brakes, you've got all this tension in your body. So what chiropractic does is it helps you get the bricks out of the truck. Then you'll notice your mileage going back up. You've got energy left over at the end of the day, which then can be used to heal you while you're sleeping, because that's exactly how it should work. And then, the tires start to heal themselves and the smoke stops coming out of the black smoke stops coming out of the back, and you start functioning better. So it's not about me fixing parts of your body. It's 100% about potential energy and potential efficiency and potential in general. I want you to have 100% potential in your life to adapt to whatever's going on. And then you can get through the day and you adapt to whatever stresses happen to be there, and you're in better shape. Every morning you start getting up going, I feel better. You didn't feel better.
Think about something like I sit around, I'm sitting down most of the day. So when I stand up, I can feel it. When I come to you, that's why I hate when you take days off, which I think it should be illegal for you to take days off. I can tell that my good weeks and bad weeks. But what about somebody like Farley, am I saying this right, Farley? A marathon runner?
We'll find out on Sunday. That'll be my first full.
The full marathon. When he runs these different races, what does that do to wear and tear on the body? And what could that? I'm gonna talk you into coming over there and getting some adjustments so he can see. Am I saying that right? Adjustments.
An adjustment, yes. So that's what the Control-Alt-Delete that we do is. It's called an adjustment. So we find areas of stress and tension in the nervous system, and those are in the spine, and the adjustment releases the stress and tension in the spine so that you can function better. If you're loose and if you've got ease in the nervous system, then you have ease in your body, and everything you do is more efficient.
So Doc, for 20 years you've been doing this. Have you always done it just as your own business, or have you been in another group and just kind of like switching to the business side of things? Or has it always been, you've always done it this way?
No, I did it. So when you leave school, you know nothing about running a business. Right. And typically what you do is you join what's called a practice management group. Yeah. And they tell you how to do things. And that's the biggest challenge is the practice management group does this thing where they say, okay, you're going to see somebody for 3 months, 3 times a week for the first month, 2 times a week for the second month, 1 time a week for the third month. And at the end of those 3 months, the person will be fixed. And then you release them from care and you say, if you ever need me again, come on back and I'll fix you again. And it's a terrible model. Right. It really is. So after a couple of years, I was really considering not being a chiropractor anymore because I just didn't like it. Their whole thing is do what I say, or you'll be crippled for the rest of your life. And it, I don't want to, for lack of a better word, enslave people to my way of thinking or make people dependent on me. I just want you to function at a higher level. I want you to function at 100%. Now, here's the thing. If you come and see me, you still have full responsibilities. You have to eat properly, move properly, rest properly, and have a good attitude. So it's not that chiropractic fixes everything. You have a job too.
Well, I think that's in any part of the medical profession. If they, hey, you got a heart issue or whatever, this or that. Don't eat this. Don't do this. I need you to exercise more. You need to do all this other stuff.
Sometimes they just don't take that.
I'm supposed to be fixed.
Yeah, you're supposed to be fixed. But if you're eating Twinkies and drinking cherry Coke and burning the candle at both ends, there's no way you can possibly be healthy, because you're not functioning at 100% and you're not doing what you need to do at 100%. So I don't make it about me. It's not about me. It's about you. And it's not, don't eat this and don't eat that. And it's more like, what can you eat that will support you? I mean, as an athlete, you have to eat certain things. You have to have a certain amount of protein and a certain amount of carbs and a certain amount of this and a certain amount of that, just to support your system for whatever you're doing.
Yes.
It all factors into how would you think, talk, and act if you were perfectly healthy.
Well, we talking a lot of stuff. I was trying to. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know when I would get there. I guess that's a.
A lot of stuff gets.
Paul's just said something very important. When do you get there? You don't,
right?
Because life isn't a destination. Life is a journey, and that's an overused tripe, but life is a process. When people get beat up and they come into my office and they're a wreck, I must have slept wrong. Or you might have been doing something wrong for 20 years. Right. And you've finally gotten to the point where you're beat up and you need to actually start doing things properly for the next 20 years to be in good shape.
Would you recommend going in and just even if you don't feel bad, or just to see if there's something, you wait, like you were saying, you come in and finally you're all beat up, or does it make sense to say, hey, right, like Tim, can't roll out of bed, but or is it something that you think that, hey, it's probably a good idea, even if you think you're feeling good, to just come in and just, like you said, reset something on a periodic basis, once a quarter, almost like your checkup or your wellness that that we're supposed to do, on a yearly basis, to say, hey, maybe quarterly or something like that. It makes sense to go in and just see.
I have adjusted newborns my whole practice. Yes. And you think, oh, well, a newborn baby, there's nothing wrong with them.
Right.
But there's a lot of stress to being born.
Right.
I envy, and I know you shouldn't envy, you shouldn't be jealous, that those are considered negative emotions. But I truly envy the babies in my practice, because they're getting their nervous system rebooted, and their nervous system is at 100% from day one or day 5, whenever they come in. When my eldest daughter was born, I walked over and she was with the nurses, and I put my hands on her and I touched her neck, and I felt something that wasn't quite right. And when you adjust a newborn, you don't adjust like you see on YouTube. It's essentially you touch the neck and you feel misalignment, we'll call it a misalignment, the stress point, and you just touch it. And babies are so connected with their nervous system, they'll literally push against your contact, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I want. And my daughter, I mean, I touched it and I just felt this stress just slip out of her neck. It just melted. And instantly she opened her eyes and looked at me. And I knew then that, I was wrapped around this child's finger for the rest of my life. I was done. But, my daughters were adjusted within moments, as soon as I could get my hands on them, of being born.
You're sitting there like this in the
Miyagi, getting myself, getting ready. But like my daughters.
I was thinking, who adjusts the chiropractor?
Oh, that's an incredible point, because if a chiropractor is not getting adjusted, they're not practicing what they preach. I have 3 or 4 friends in the area, and we regularly see each other. I mean, and I know Tim's seen a chiropractor walking out of my office, and I'll adjust them and they'll adjust me, and we go to each other's office regularly. Yeah, Paul was talking about, once a quarter. I'm a fairly healthy person, and I get checked once a week. Usually it takes about 2 weeks for the process to really get going, and not to feel problems, but for problems to begin to occur. It takes about a couple of weeks to start, and I don't want those processes started.
Right.
It's a process. Everything in life is a process. There is no destination. You're constantly doing something. You're constantly moving in a direction. You're either moving toward health or moving toward not health, and we call it ease and dis-ease. Yeah, ease and dis-ease, not disease. But if you have a lack of ease in your nervous system and you're tightening up, then you're piling the bricks up in the back of your truck. And we don't want those bricks accumulating in our truck. We want to just keep flushing them out and getting rid of them. So it's just a regular thing. You eat well, you move well, you get checked. And that's my office. So when people walk into my office and say, how long will this take? I'm like, I want to see you once a week till one of us stops breathing. And if it's me, I'll make sure that, you have someone else to go to. I'll recommend someone before I go.
Right. How many patients do you normally see a day?
That's a good question.
On average, I guess. Yeah.
I guess 40-ish. It can be more. So let me explain my office. My office, I don't do appointments. I don't do appointments in my office. It's all walking.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons that when I take a day off, I text everybody and say I'm not going to be there, because people just show up. So you can have days when 50, 60 people show up, and you can have days when 30 people show up. So I never know what's going to happen in my practice. Tim can walk in and there can be 10 people wait in line, or he walks in and I'm like, hey, come on back, because it just happens that nobody's there at that moment.
Right.
Now, I don't do any physical therapy. I believe we have physical therapists for that. I don't do massage. I don't do nutrition. I don't do any of that, because we have those people and they're experts in their field. And I really believe that you should stay in your lane. My job is very simple. I check your nervous system. I locate, analyze, and adjust whatever I find. And that's my job. That's all I do. I don't diagnose. I don't prognose. You come in, I check you just like you had never been checked before, and I go from there.
Well, what is your business model? Like, how does somebody find you? How do they sign up? How much does it cost?
Oh, my My office is called the Zone Healing Chiropractic. If you type Zone Healing Chiropractic into your search engine with Dr. Nick, you'll find my offices. They can go to my online system, which is through this thing called Jane app, and it's an online scheduling system. And like I said, people who are already my patients just show up. They know that.
Yeah.
With new patients, I like to schedule simply because I've had in the past where I was doing the scheduling and I did it badly. And like two, 3 new patients show up all at the same time. And I like about 20 minutes because I want to sit down and talk to you and explain that I'm not going to just lay you on the table, crack you, and you'll feel better. I want you to actually understand what the process is. And the process is a process. In the beginning, people come in a couple of times a week because we're trying to restore the original habit of perfect health. And trying to fix somebody is a bad idea. Yeah, I got one too. I'm sure you heard her bark in the background.
He likes looking out the window.
So you come see me, and then what I want is, like I said, I want you to come in once a week for the rest of your life. So my practice isn't, $50, $60, $80 an adjustment. It's $100 a month, and you come in as much as in the beginning as you need, and then come in regularly after that. I was joking around with a patient and said, "Yeah, I don't need to buy a boat off of each patient." And the guy laughed and said, "You haven't bought a boat lately." apparently it's not what I expected. But yeah, my what I really want is just the people to come in regularly and get checked.
Do you find yourself, so is there anything within your practice then? Because I'm sure obviously if you're doing it at $100, then there, which I always do, and I think that this is one of the biggest things within the medical industry. I think the rise of insurance, or this, I always felt like insurance should be there for the catastrophic things. 100%. Insurance should be there if I get cancer. That's what I should do. But I've always said, I think that the concierge type service is what's going to be coming, which is, instead of me paying $200 to $400 a month in my payroll insurance, you pay $100 and maybe $100 or so. That covers the catastrophic stuff. The absolute. I now have to go on dialysis or something like that. Those bigger type things. And then the rest of that money, I would actually pay my doctor. My doctor is out as part of TPMG out in Newport News, and to me, I would think that would be, first of all, better for for the doctor. Obviously in revenue sense, because there's no middleman taking and figuring out what this is not, what this is covering and this isn't covering, and let me delay your payments and all that. I always said that I think that a lot of healthcare practices, certainly not in your model the way you have it, but I always say they're 2 or 3 days away from cash flow errors that can shut the practice down.
Well, the reason care is so expensive across the board in any model, the medicals included, is because insurance is there to make a profit. They are no longer there. They are there for their stockholders. All insurance companies are publicly traded, and it is the duty of the company to make a profit for their shareholders. That's their job. My job, I don't take insurance at all.
Right.
And one of the reasons I got away from insurance is because we're in Virginia Beach and Portsmouth and in our area, it's heavily military. So a lot of these people have TRICARE. TRICARE doesn't cover chiropractic at all.
Right.
So I started the membership practice because I wanted to be able. I don't do it because it's a deal. I do it because it's the most reasonable way that I can keep people in my practice for the rest of their lives and check them regularly. And I much prefer to be like a gym membership. I want you to come into the gym except I actually want you to come into my office, not like a gym where you're 2 months going into the gym. I want you to come in regularly. I'm like, abuse me, have fun.
Have you gotten to the point where you feel like you're at max? I mean, obviously, then you're saying, okay, well, the economies of scale. How do I get? Are you working 10-hour days?
I don't run a 10-hour day, but I got to tell you, I'm bad at marketing.
Right.
At this point in my practice, 90% of my new people are all word of mouth.
Right.
And I'm sure there's better ways. I'm sure I could utilize social media, something else, and do it better. I'm actually really bad at it. I am not a good businessman at all. I'm really not. I'm a great chiropractor. I'm a terrible businessman. My wife does all of the organization in my office. She keeps me organized. She writes stuff on my calendar. Without her, I would struggle mightily. But when you're talking about insurance, I mean, you can have $1 million practice, but what you have to do is charge ridiculous amounts, not necessarily to make money, but the insurance companies will always lowball you. One of my friend Sean always says, insurance pays what insurance pays. So when somebody comes to him and says, hey, I've got great insurance, they'll pay the whole thing. He smiles at him and says, listen, insurance pays what insurance pays. So if you have an $80 visit fee, insurance is only going to pay like $40.
Right.
They're going to pay half of that. So they have to charge an obscene amount, but then they trick you. And if you become part of an insurance system, and let's say I'm working with Paul, who's got great insurance, and I'm charging him $80, and I'm working with Tim, and let's say he's got terrible insurance that pays nothing, and he's a cash patient, I cannot charge him 40 and charge you 80. That's called a double scale system, and they'll actually come in and say, well, you've been overcharging us, you need to pay us a certain amount back. And it's like, why? So I've eliminated insurance out of my practice.
And the overpayment doesn't go back to the patient.
Not at all. No.
They're like, I'm going to take that back.
No, it doesn't go to the patient. It goes right to the insurance company.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I always said. I really, really believe that it's going to end up, because I used to sell EMR systems. So I have an IT background. I owned a few IT companies in the Hampton Roads area, and I supported. I was a field engineer, a network engineer for MISIS healthcare systems, and broke off from that, and then actually became a reseller when they merged with Allscripts and started to sell their EMR system during the whole High Tech Act. And I always remember that I had a client that was up in Fairfax that he didn't accept insurance, and he kept saying, I don't need to go to it because you can't find me because I don't accept it anyway. And I go, I was trying to talk to him. I was like, well, this person, and I said, let me just take a look at your system. And I looked at his system, and all of his patients were John Doe. And it's Fairfax, so it's that area. He was like, this is how I do my business, and that's just how we do it. And I go, it makes sense, I guess, when you're trying to make sure that something happened and you probably shouldn't have been doing what you were doing, and you're a government employee. We're going to make sure we just go to this doc. So, but it always made me think that like I said, the whole concierge service, which is really what you're doing. I mean, that's
a great system.
And the service is better. You're probably making more money than you would have done trying to go through insurance in the first place.
Yes and no. To do insurance, you have to have. Well, you have to be organized for one thing, and I've already established I'm not organized. And you have to have all of the stuff set up. my friend, Dr. Renee, you said it the best. He goes, you have to be a cog in the machine. And I don't want to be a cog in the machine. I've dealt with lawyers a couple of times. I don't do personal injury. I don't do car accidents. I don't do any of that because I don't want to deal with lawyers.
Right. Telling you what you have to do this or do that.
Yeah. If you do it properly, I have a friend, Chuck, down in Louisiana. He and his brother are chiropractors, and they do huge. I mean, they do $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year, but it's all insurance based, and they have 10 people that work with them. So yeah, they understand how it works, and they make 3 times as much money as I do, but the headache is insane. I have a friend who does insurance up in Pennsylvania, and the insurance company can just walk in and say, "Show me all your records," which I think highly it's like, I don't think that's a good idea. But I'm not going to say his name, but he's a brilliant guy, and he took all these x-rays and never billed the insurance company. So they walked in and checked his records, and he was like, "Oh, looks like you owe me 40 grand." And he said, and he started laughing, going, maybe I'll buy a Rolex, and next time they walk in, I'll go, "Hey, see this Rolex? Y'all bought me this last time. Come back anytime you want to buy me another one."
It's gonna be in trouble.
So it's part of the game. I'll tell you, I sleep well at night. Right. As long as I can take care of my family well and just not deal with the nonsense and not be a cog in the machine. My job is to support Tim and all my other patients.
Right. And the nice thing about it is there are actually, the way that you're kind of doing things now, there are, with the development of AI and a lot of this automation type things that are out in the market now.
Sure.
I mean, it's gotten to that point, like you said. I mean, you could get yourself very easily into a marketing rotation and not even have to worry about it. I mean, that's the reality nowadays is the way that you could pick up, like you're saying, social media and all of these items. And that's what I was wondering was like, are you looking for more patients than coming in, or are you just saying, "Hey, I'm at my max"? Because that's always my thing. Can you scale at the model that you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. I could double what I'm seeing now comfortably.
Right. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be a problem at all. And I absolutely could. And I have looked at, I have friends who are hugely into like the chats and the groks and all that sort of stuff. I've sort of looked at that, and I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't figured out how to step
Would
into
you
that.
manage it though? Would you manage it?
Right.
Or you want somebody else to manage it?
It depends on how complicated it is. I mean, if it's, if it's only, a couple hours a week, I could easily manage that. I was actually an IT person for 10 years.
I'd love to bring that up. Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah.
And what was it, jiu-jitsu?
I'll make Paul laugh. You remember something called Lotus Notes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I was an administrator / developer for Lotus Notes for 10 years.
Wow.
I had a client that sunset that thing. It wasn't very long ago either. It was like 8 or 9 years ago. That with Novell and all kinds of. I actually enjoyed doing networking through Novell than I did through Microsoft through Active Directory. So
I'll tell you a funny story.
Hold on. We're a rep for Microsoft, so please don't listen to him on that.
If you think he's bad, wait till I tell you this story. I was working as a administrator for a very large company. Well, I'll just say it. I work for Philip Morris, right. And which is hilarious that a chiropractor used to work for Philip Morris. But But
now I know why you don't like the lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. I had my note servers up, and the air conditioning failed in the server room, and it went up to 100 degrees. Well, they realized that the servers were going to start burning up, so some genius threw the switch, the main breaker, and turned off the server room.
Oh God!
Just turned it off. Hard, brought everything down hard. There was no gentle anything. So they had a Microsoft Exchange. They used that for their email. And I remember Monday morning, I walked down into the server room and they got their air conditioning running, and all the Exchange guys are standing around the servers literally weeping because it just corrupted everything and they were screwed. And they were like, Nick, what are you going to do? And I reached over and hit the power button on my 5 servers and went, notes is made to come down hard. It's fine. And I walked away. And they didn't talk to me for days. They were and they were even more mad because I walked upstairs and the guy was like, wow, we have no email for days. And I'm like, you realize you have a notes client on every computer here? And they went, yeah. And I went, it has email built into it. Just use your notes email until it works. And the guy was like, oh, that's brilliant. And I'm like, oh, okay, bye. And I walked away. And then they didn't talk to me for 2 weeks because I, usurped their little empire. So yeah, Notes was good at the time. It did its job.
You're right. I mean, it was like you said, it was a tank. I mean, it was it definitely was a force to reckon with, and I think the ease of use of just the familiarity with everything within Outlook, and of course, the model that Microsoft did, which is we're just going to tie it into your Word and your Excel and your other stuff. They basically priced everybody out of it. So
yeah, if you look at Notes, it was like the first idea of running everything from a centralized location before everybody moved into browser-based whatever. Yeah. Everything, but Notes was browser-based. It was its own browser, but Notes was browser-based before browser-based was a thing. Right, and I think it had the potential to do really well, but it was just mismanaged. And I don't care because in 2000 I went to chiropractic school and let it all fall behind me.
Change the whole thing.
Now computers take it personal and don't like me anymore. They're like, oh, we're gonna be mean to you now.
It's that guy.
He left us. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Buck, I ask you one more time how people can find you and what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is, like I said, Zone Healing Chiropractic, Dr. Nick. Put it in your search engine. In the Virginia area, I'm the only zone doctor. So the zones are the way I practice. In the 1930s, a guy named Dr. Fleet came up with the zones, and it is, in my opinion, one of the cleanest ways to practice. That's the system I use, and it is based on it is, in my opinion, the first brain-based system. So
could you elaborate on that? Because because that's something I don't know what that means. I mean, is that something different than from other chiropractors and how they, or is that something from a medical standpoint that we're?
No, I'm as far from medical as the whole idea of medical is you look at symptoms and you treat the person for the resolution of symptoms. And if you've gotten anything from me, it's like, I don't really care what your symptoms are.
Right.
I don't care what your symptoms are. I mean, I care about you as a person and I want you to be very healthy. But if I make your symptoms my first priority, then I'm missing the big picture, because my job is to get you to 100% potential. And if you're at 100% potential, as you begin to raise your potential, your symptoms will fall away. So,
and you're saying it's from a natural standpoint too, correct? I mean, that's really what.
So if your potential is 100% and you begin to lose your potential, your symptoms will begin to come up. Well, if I treat your symptoms and I'm playing over here, your potential doesn't change. But if I raise your potential, then your symptoms, just by a natural process, will begin to drop off. And you'll begin to get ease in your nervous system. And when you have ease in your nervous system, you have flexibility in your whole body. And I'm not talking about just physical flexibility. You also get mental and emotional flexibility. So if you're mentally flexible, you think better, you think clearer. Emotionally, if your emotional potential is 100%, then you're not fighting and flighting. You're able to let those you're able to look at those emotions, and everything in your life is stimulus reaction. So when the stimulus comes in, if you're in fight or flight, you react in a fight or a flight. As your ability to emotionally adapt gets higher, the stimulus comes in and you have a space between the stimulus and the reaction. So you can actually think about what's going on in your life, and you can react, or instead of just reacting, you can act in a much more healthy way. So it opens up that window of stimulus reaction and gives you the ability to act in your life in a healthier way. So it's not a react. Your life doesn't become reaction. You become, hey,
Right.
Oh my God, my daughter's car is going to cost, $5,000 to fix. You don't end up here.
I don't know.
Oh
I might.
That's why I said that.
That's a good point, because Paul's always there. He's always there. I don't know what to tell you.
So that's your reaction, because you're in fight or flight. You're trying to protect your neck. And if we do it from the side, if I come from the side, the reaction is this. Your head comes forward. Well, when your head goes forward, every inch your head moves forward, you double the weight on your neck. And you've got all that tension in your neck. And now you've got pressure on your nervous system, because your neck is your brain has to send signals through your neck to get to the rest of your body.
Mm-hmm.
So when that's tense, it makes everything in life harder. Life should be easy. Let me change that. As you live, you should be able to do things with ease. Life is not always easy, but if you can have ease in your life, it's just better.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to drag him over one day, and I want you to let me adjust him, if you don't mind.
Why has he got a baton, Doc?
Paul, come on down. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because, Tim loves to go, hey, have you seen this video of this chiropractor doing XYZ? And
see him spinning people or whatever. And
I talked to Tim and I said, what's YouTube for? It's for entertainment.
It's true.
You're trying to get views. If you've got a chiropractor on YouTube and he's doing that thing where you wrap the towel around the neck and jerk the head, that dude's gonna get 100,000 comments. And here's the trick of the internet these days. A negative comment is just as good as a positive comment.
That's true.
Yeah.
It drives the algorithm. So that guy, for his YouTube channel, not necessarily for his practice, loves that.
Yeah.
He wants to generate as much controversy as he can. What's the old saying? Good news, bad news.
It's all news. Yeah.
It's all music.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the people that's experimenting on each other and actually trying it out.
let me tell you, I went to chiropractic school for 4 years. The first 2 years you go to chiropractic school, you do all the ologies. Chiropractic school for the first 2 years is almost indistinguishable from medical school. You're doing the ologies. The last 2 years of chiropractic school, you're studying neurology and adjusting. So it's a very specific way to get the nervous system to adapt at a higher level. That's our whole job. When you're in chiropractic school, you have the last 2 years of your school, you're in clinic. So you're learning to adjust the first couple of terms that you're in clinic. You're working on each other. All the students are, we're the crash test dummies for the other students. We're just banging on each other, trying to figure it out. And we're very well, people watch us very carefully because, we don't know what the hell we're doing. We've taken all these adjusting classes, and we'll do setups on each other, but we don't actually put the thrust in. Once you get to clinic, you start putting the thrust in, and that's where you have to really clean up your act, because chiropractic, I'm going to say everything in life, it's philosophy, art, and science. You've got the science that we cover for the first 2 years very well. Then we do a lot of philosophy, and that's sort of the why we do it. And then the art is how to actually throw an adjustment. And you need to be able to do that. So chiropractic school is more like dental school, where they have to spend time in a clinic actually drilling teeth and pulling teeth and that sort of thing, under the supervision of people who actually know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Medical doctors walk out of medical school, they walk into their internship, they've never touched a person. They've never thrown a stitch. They've never done anything. The only X-ray class they've taken is normal X-ray. So they're taught on the job how to deal with people. You can't have chiropractors do that. You have to do it in school.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I would be nervous. Well, Dr. Nick, I'm about to jump off here. I really appreciate you doing it. After I get to side, because this is definitely going to be one of those that I play over and over again, streaming is live. I think people are going to want to hear information about it. And every time you get a new client in, I'm going to tell them to say, hey, Tim sent me.
I look forward to it, man. I appreciate it.
Well, Farley, you know something? There's guys that actually come in there. We don't know each other's name. We'll stop and say, hey, what kind of socks you got on? Because you always wear those goofy socks. There's a couple of clients that
socks are awesome.
Yeah. Are we going? I'll usually mail out a little gift for the host, first guest coming on, but I see you. I'm going to end up bringing it to you. We'll have it made. I think you're going to love it. It's a surprise.
Yeah.
All right.
Tim, it is a pleasure to know you, man. I always enjoy our conversations. Paul, it was a pleasure, man.
Absolutely, Doc.
If you have any other questions, just look me up and email me.
Hey, I'll definitely come out and give it a whirl, and we'll go from there.
I'm gonna get him out there.
Yeah, come on by.
I might be there early next week because I'm running the full Shamrock. So I might need a lot of adjustment. You might go in there. You might need a towel on me and put your foot.
I'm ready.
Back of my head.
Dude, I adjust babies, and to be completely honest, it's not much different adjusting a baby than a person. You just gotta, an adult, I should say. It's just you've just gotta find what's there, let it go, and let the process get started.
Well, Farley likes to play this game, so don't be surprised if I'm pulling him out of the trunk. This is a game
duct tape over my mouth. Yeah.
Don't hurt your back. Come in, get me. I'll help you carry him in.
All right, man. As always, thank you, Dr. Nick. I'll see you on Tuesday, I believe.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys later.
All right,
Have a
Farley.
great
See ya, Doc.
Bye-bye.